frightening store robbery.
This guy came in and he pulled out a gun.
In within inches of the cashier leads to a life-threatening pursuit. The two most dangerous things is car crashes and shootouts. Have both those possibilities. I'm just looking for body. In south central Colorado lies the old steel manufacturing city of Pueblo.
Hi, somebody just kicked in my neighbor's door. There was two guys at there's like a low car parking beside their house. Oh, okay. I see.
Good to go, Heidi?
And I don't know what happened.
All right, public comment. Is there anybody in the audience here wishing to address the county board about any particular issue? We'll have placeholders in the meeting later. All right. Is there anybody on the internet or hinterland that would like to address the Winona County Board about anything? If there is, please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
It's low volumes.
Low volume. How about now? How about if I speak up?
Better,
Any better?
better. Go ahead.
All right. This is Darren Engler, and I'm calling in about the mask mandate ordinance. And I just got a few questions for the three that are supporting this. Where is the urgency at? I know there was a big urgent push in the beginning, and Karen is out on medical leave, and now it seems that there's no urgency. It seemed that you guys, at least what you said in emails, you were concerned about the health of the Winona County residents, but now it doesn't seem like that's that urgent anymore. So I'm curious as to what your thinking is now. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing name and address?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't think we got his address.
Anybody else wishing to address the Winona County Board?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Regina Alexander. I live at 1352 Skyline Drive in Winona. I'm calling in regards to the possibility of a countywide mask mandate as well. I've heard many of you quote and speak to the issue of this mask mandate being of a health and public safety issue and not a political one. Well, it is political. It is political because it affects the free will of the people. And sadly, it interferes with the lives of our voiceless children. Politics affect policy, and policy affects people, and people matter. You are our elected politicians. You affect our policies, and we matter. Our choice matters. You, however, have no jurisdiction over people's personal health choices, and I'm pretty sure not one member of this community would want any one of you to be the ones to make decisions on their personal health choices going forward. As you would also not want any of us making mandated choices on your health care. Even our own doctors can't make us change our lifestyles. This is about mandating and taking away free will. We have to stop this nonsense. Say you think masks are necessary. Then you have the choice to wear one. The issue then lines up with your point of view. But if we continue the unjust and unlawful demands over others, one day a mandate will be made that won't align with where you stand, and you may not be in a position to stop it. There have been articles and backlash about the group working to stop the mandate, and we have been misrepresented as an anti-mask group, when in fact, all we want is to protect the free will of the people. Anti-mandate does not mean anti-mask. And also, none of you are health personnel, and there have been facts brought to your attention about mask inefficacy. And I hope you actually pay attention to them, because there are no substantial facts stating otherwise. Actually, according to the CDC, Every one of you are using masks incorrectly. Every doctor who is not changing out their N95 mask is wearing them incorrectly for efficacy. This is not about public safety. If you were still worried about public health and safety, then you would mandate a slower speed limit, say 20 miles an hour. That would save a lot of lives. How about you shut down all bars and liquor stores to stop problems with alcoholism, drunk driving, underage drinking, and so on? How about you shut down tobacco sales because there are numerous health issues that come from smoking, such as heart disease and cancer. That's a big public safety issue and a big burden on our healthcare system. Now, here's the thing. Stop trying to take away.
Regina, can I ask you to wrap it up, please? We
Sure.
allow 2 minutes per speaker. Thank you.
I'm just trying to say, stop trying to take away our free choice. We are not going to stop fighting for ourselves and our children. And we are here now paying attention. We're paying attention to our local and our national people in service. And we're going to pay attention, and we're going to be the ones running for school board, for council, for county, and on national levels, because now we're paying attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to address the Winona County Board? Is there anyone else wishing to address the Winona County Board? For the final time, is there anyone else wishing to address the Winona County Board? Okay, seeing nobody, thank you very much. We'll be moving on in our agenda. Item 5, approval of the county board meeting minutes. 5.1 is county board October 12th, 2021. 5.2 is closed session October 12th, 2021.
I'll move to approve 5.1 and 5.2.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, second by Commissioner Kavesi to approve the county board meeting minutes. 5.1, county board October 12th, 2021. 5.2, closed session October 12th, 2021. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. Thank you. Item 6, acknowledge receipt of approved committee meeting minutes. 6.1 is the Land Records Committee meeting, August 6th, 2021.
Move to acknowledge 6.1.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to acknowledge the receipt of the Land Records Committee from August 6th, 2021. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. Received. Thank you. Item 7, consent comments and approval of the agenda. Mr. Fritz, do you have anything?
I have no changes.
Okay. Commissioner Kavesi?
No changes.
Okay. Commissioner Meyer?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Jacob or Commissioner Olson?
Nothing for me, thank
All right. Commissioner Jacob?
Nothing for me.
Okay. I would like to pull item 8.3 for a separate vote and 8.9 for a separate vote, please. And then just one very brief announcement, please. All right, so we'll make 8.3's 9.0 and 8.9 9.01, please. So we have an amended agenda.
I move approval of the agenda as amended. I'll second.
A motion by Commissioner Kavesi, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to approve the amended agenda as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. Mr. Fritz, would you read the remainder items into the consent business,
I
please?
will.
Thank you.
Consent business, department recommendations. 8.1, approve submittal agreement for grant software. 8.2, approve staff recommendation to reject bid proposals for detention equipment and authorize rebidding for detention equipment. 8.3 has been pulled for further discussion. 8.4, approve renewal of crime victim services 2021 to 2023 grant and resolution. 8.5, approve LG 220 gambling application for exempt permit Winona Root River Pheasant Forever. 8.6, approve 2022-2023 Minnesota Family Investment Program biannual service agreement. 8.7, approve renewal of grant agreement and resolution for 2022 towards Zero Death Safe Roads. 8.8, approve monthly resolution. 8.9 has been pulled for further discussion. 8.10, approve 2022 to 2025 delegated county feedlot grant agreement. 8.11, authorize disposal of excess equipment. 8.12, approve donations received 7/1/2021 through 9/30/2021. And 8.13, confirm payment of disbursements. That completes the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda as read.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, second by Commissioner Meyer to approve the consent business as read. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. All right. General business then, 8.3. That's just approve the amended guaranteed maximum price and amend AIA agreement for jail project. Of course, I don't support the jail project, so it's hard for me to vote to pay for it.
That it?
Yes, that's my
I'll
statement.
move to,
Thank you.
I'll move to approve
Yes.
9.0. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Kavesi to approve the amended guaranteed maximum price and amended AIA agreement for jail project. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Nay. Okay, all right, passes. And then 8.9. Again, I failed to find any kind of pay for performance. And that's one of my big goals in county government someday. So I cannot support a union contract that doesn't address any kind of performance pay.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I will move to approve item 9.01, approving the ASME 65 labor agreement for 2022 to 2024.
Second.
we have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Olson to approve the ASME 65 labor agreement 2022-2024. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Nay. All right, passes. Thank you. All right, into general business, 9.1, review, discuss, approve county administrator profile. And I think we have Pat with us tonight.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you this evening.
Pat, if you would like, you can take your mask off when you're
Okay.
speaking at the podium. We've got the social distance and everything, but if you want to leave it on, whichever you prefer.
That would be appreciated. I sound better this way, I think. Thank you. So this evening, I certainly appreciate the assistance of Ms. Holt and Hun in terms of scheduling interviews with department heads and other individuals. So I have had the opportunity to sit down and talk with individuals and gather input, which is how I came up with the profile, which was included in your package. So one of the things that I'd like to do tonight is to go through that profile and see what your thoughts are, if there are items that should be removed, or if there are items that you would like to see added. We can certainly do that. So I did bring 2 pens to make sure I didn't run out of ink. I will gladly take any comments or thoughts. Again, it was a very positive thing. I think that the department heads went out of their way to participate, and there were some very good things said, much to Administrator Fritz's credit.
Okay. I guess just open it up for any questions that the board had. I think everybody was interviewed or part of an interview process.
Correct.
Okay.
So everybody had a chance to talk with me, and what I really looked for was kind of a consistent theme or something that I heard multiple times, and then included that in the list of desired attributes.
Commissioner Olson.
I'm trying to remember, back when Ken was interviewed, did we have a citizen panel?
You had,
I don't see that in here as a, actually, we have department,
yeah, there were 2 panels. One was like staff department heads, and then there was another one that I think was community, if I remember correctly.
Correct, and I think what you're talking about is what's coming up.
Coming up, yep. Okay, I just want to make sure that we don't pass over that.
And that's something that we will talk about briefly here this evening. I just want to kind of plant the seed and have you start thinking about how that process will play out. So that's another item that we will come to after the profile. If you want to, you can certainly jump to that right now, your preferences for that.
Nothing jumped out at me. Let's see, let me find the page.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner
Um,
Gracie, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate the chance to meet with you, Patrick. That was valuable. And one of the things that we talked about was it's kind of an issue of my own. It's a strength and a weakness at the same time, but I have this innate ability or edit things. And I started on page 199 and 200 where it has the classification and it describes examples of duties. And then it's also on page I'm sorry, that's page 205 and 206. It's also on page 199 and 200. There's a whole list of duties for the administrator, and they're well thought out and all of that. However, many of them, they all seem to start with a verb that ends in an S. Establishes, prepares, hires, and some of them have two verbs in their clause, and the second verb does not have an S, and that's not actually correct. So it should, instead of saying on page 199, the second bullet point, it says prepares and submit to the county board. It should say prepares and submits. So there's a whole series of those. I'm not going to point out each one of them individually here, but I'd be glad to work with you. There was one that I didn't understand. It's on page 200. It's the second bullet point, third bullet point down. It starts off by saying financial accountability requiring a strategic and balanced perspective, and it goes on. I didn't really find, to me it should say ensures financial accountability and then continue on. Otherwise, the administrator has financial accountability or does something with financial accountability. The administrator ensures financial accountability. And then the next bullet point, I think it needs one additional word to be clearer. It says the administrator is responsible for preparation and recommendation to the county board regarding the long-range planning needs. So I would insert the word regarding in there.
And I'll certainly go back and double check. I believe a lot of this may have come from the job description, but I will certainly go back and check and make sure.
Okay. And the last one is the second to the last bullet point on the bottom of the page. It says embody teamwork, and all of the other verbs that start these phrases are ending in S, so it should say embodies. Yeah. And the list on page 205 and 206 is very similar. The language is the same, actually. The corrections are on 199.
Literally last year or something.
Do you want me to send you a list of those
Maybe if you wouldn't mind, or
that
even after
need
the
the extra S on the second verb?
Okay,
Okay.
sure, that would be helpful
Yeah.
to make sure that we don't miss anything, but thank you for pointing that out.
Okay.
We will definitely.
Yeah,
Well, this represents us, so I would like it to
True.
be as accurate as possible.
I saw some of those too, and thanks for bringing those up. I think I was able to get by because then the last phrase on that second time they come up just kind of stated that this was a general idea. It wasn't like the ironclad finish job
Yeah.
description. So along the lines of what Marie just pointed out, I'll just call it a pet peeve, is that I found a half a dozen places in here, and I'll read this one that says, as an example, that's the only one I'll read. Provides for the execution of all ordinances, resolutions, and orders of the board and all laws of the state required to be, whenever you use an absolute like all, being required to manage all the laws of the state, I mean, just managing the ordinances and laws seems adequate. Then just as many times as I saw the word all, it seems too extreme to, nobody's ever going to be able to meet those kind of requirements.
Yep. I agree. We can
Okay.
certainly
Yeah.
clean that
That
up.
minor thing, yep.
Clean that up.
I thought the descriptions and the organization, those narratives were very well done. I thought the pictures represented a wide diversity of the county, and I appreciate that. So, I mean, generally, I thought it was done well. This piece just somehow jumped out at me, so I appreciate it.
Great.
Is this, Attorney O'Loughlin?
I just wanted to, is there a modification you want to alert them of on the organizational chart?
Yes, there's a few changes that I
what?
wanted to.
I reached out to the gentleman earlier today. I think he's going to talk about the organizational structure on the chart.
Is there a flaw in there?
Yes, there's a few changes that I just wanted to review with you after I kind of gathered your input. One of those is with regards to the organizational chart, which is,
Page.
sorry, I don't have the page numbers.
Page 202.
Yeah, it's really hard to read the page numbers.
So on page 202,
Yeah, there's a
Kevin was
repetition.
kind enough to contact me and let me know that we have both the auditor treasurer as well as the recorder listed with the other appointed department heads. And so what we'll be doing is moving, again, the auditor treasurer as well as the recorder over to where the attorney and the sheriff are noted as an elected. So thank you for that correction.
Yeah, and under planning and environmental services, there's a phrase that again says planning and environmental services, so I'm not sure.
It's
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's duplicated, yeah.
Okay.
That's what they do, but it is their name, so.
Yep, we will certainly scratch that. And I know, as I was looking at the first page there, I saw that we had, this would be the third paragraph. The other communities in the county vary in size from 50, the vary is V-E-R-Y.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
V-A-R-Y.
Missed that one.
So-
You're good.
Yep.
We caught Marie.
Yep, so we caught one there, and then there was a spacing issue that I saw with some wording as well. So this is a draft, and yeah, we will definitely be going back and making those changes, and it'll be in tip-top shape before it gets out.
Is this, so I'm looking at, and again, I'm just looking at on here, not a printed copy, so I may be looking at it wrong. But I'm looking at the first page, it says, in my back packet here, it says page 192. We got a picture of the beautiful Mississippi River, the two colors and everything. Is that gonna be the first page that a person picks up and sees this thing?
Yes.
Then I don't wanna see salary range up to 155,000 as one of the first things they see. I
Okay.
do
and-
not want that. I do not want somebody coming here because of the pay.
Yes.
I mean, it should be in there, but it shouldn't be the first thing on the cover page, in my opinion.
I think kind of more board discussion than your discussion is to advertise 155 is the top you ever got to, right?
Right, yeah, well, I have
So,
an issue with the number
Ken had to
too.
pay for performance to get to that for many years. So are we just saying we're paying the next person starting out where he left off? I mean, that seems almost kind of insulting.
I would like to talk about that also.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the items that I had identified. So I've got some comparison counties that.
Right, that was
utilize
very
to
helpful.
compare with.
I can't say that we shouldn't be there, but
Yeah, I have a question on page 202 where it says the budget summary. the transportation sales tax and the road and bridge state aid, are those, those are not is that expenditures or income?
Funds.
Well, we do have expenditures under the transportation sales tax, for instance.
Right, oh, okay, so this is, no matter what we earned under sale, these are all expenditures.
Right. This
Okay.
table is, yeah.
It just kind of jumped out at me. Okay, thank you. That's just, yeah, no, the salary, I would like to see a salary range and,
Next page on that 203, I think it is, yeah, it says salary range, but it just has 155.
yeah, and on page 204,
I'm
you,
not starting there right from the get-go.
No, and that's where I was going to, in the packet also provided is a copy of the comparison.
Comparable counties, yeah.
You can see that the minimum range is 124, based roughly approximately 124.5. The range max is 175.
What do you see out there as, will we bring candidates in if we're much below the 155 figure?
I think you're definitely in the ballpark, depending upon the type of candidate that you get. I think they're going to.
Let's just say we want a really good candidate.
Yep. I think if you're at 155, I think you'll get it.
We just from experience, so we just posted and are hiring a replacement for MCIT. And it's a process, and I didn't see everything because we have a subcommittee and everything. Initially, wages wasn't even included in the posting. They know it's got to be a reasonable wage. They didn't even have it in the posting. And we had some pretty good candidates. Again, of course, they're living in Minneapolis. They're not coming to Winona County and stuff like that. And I'm not sure where the wages are ending up, but that was going to be something that was subcommittee was somewhat negotiating.
if we do list a salary, I would list a range.
Yes.
I don't know if the average would work. And you can put a phrase in there depending on qualification and experience,
Right.
or you can say with annual review. You can let them know that this is the range, but you can come in there at any point in it, depending on how you present and your qualifications. And then after you get in, you are also going to have annual review. So that to me is much better than saying 155.
And Winona County is a little unique in that most counties do have a range, a minimum and a max. But I believe on your job descriptions, it just has a $1 dollar amount.
We went to an average, right?
So,
But that's
It's only
the
for
current-
this position, there's one amount. The department heads have, well, elected officials and the county administrator have just one amount, whatever that salary is. The other positions below that, like all the department heads, they have ranges.
Are we mandated to put an amount in there, or could we put salary upon request, or, salary range upon request, or,
In my opinion, in full transparency, that should be upfront. I mean, the person should know what they're applying for. And if 155 was our top, I would maybe suggest, personally, I'm thinking like 145 to 155 as a range. And peak performance, you could get up to that 155, which will then always continue to be negotiated. We'll have everyone, there'll be cost of living increases that'll continue to push that 155 number up. So I don't know, what's your advice on that?
Madam Chair?
Well,
Yeah,
correct, as each year, as the market changes, numbers change. So what you're doing is you're giving them a number now. And, depending on where this individual may be, they're going to look to say, is it worth me making the transition? And they're going to look, where's the ballpark of that number?
But your organization, not you personally, your organization in the past has come in and said you always need to pay more. Not you yourself, but your organization has, every time we've looked at hire somebody, and I've been through a couple, you got to pay more. And that, you know who I'm speaking of. But now, when you use these counties, and I think they're the ones that we always use, but they're not comparables in my opinion. I mean, like Blue Earth, the first one off the top of the thing, Blue Earth. Blue Earth has, I'm just looking at a sheet I carry around. This is total market value of real and personal property. They're almost twice the size we are. Just that factor alone. Sherburne County, and I don't know where they're paying. They're again, Sherburne, I lost them. They're almost twice this, as part of total market value, twice the size of us. So, but you didn't put down what you have a range there. You don't have what they're currently making.
Correct. And if there are other comparison counties that you'd like to, what I did is I just went off what the union will during negotiations.
Yep. Well, I've always had issues with that because to me, it's not a
If the
comparison.
board would like a different comparison, I can get those numbers.
Well, I'm gonna say that would have to be a board decision, and collectively, Marcia, you've stood on this for a long time that you want this reviewed. But until the board has that discussion, which would be involved, lengthy, and take a long time, I don't want to just upset that apple cart with saying, I don't like that couple top numbers, because then you get into what's the proximity counties, and Olmsted County is a close proximity, and you look at what they're paying and all at once. So, you're looking at it from a perspective of which high numbers you don't want to see in there.
Well, I don't even know what they're being currently paid. If we want to use these counties, that's fine, but I need to know what they're.
I think
being
that's
paid.
to be consistent, that was what we've done in the past with all our other.
I can tell you that these are the counties we've used for all the bargaining groups, right? It's also the counties we use for the elected officials. And it's also the counties we used to set my salary, which was the average, or pretty close to the average.
And to tell you the truth, I don't know who ever picked those counties.
Well, that was
It wasn't a
done
board, it
20
wasn't a
years ago.
board, yeah, it wasn't a board decision.
Unions.
It wasn't a
Yeah.
board
It was
decision.
a long time.
No,
I'm not
ever.
saying they're
20
correct.
years.
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
if you're looking for what their salaries are, the average is pretty close to what I'm making now.
But what you have said is it's very difficult to change them.
Well, yeah, for bargaining purposes, you
that's
could
right.
change them for
Major
elected officials, you could change it for the county administrator, but then you wouldn't have any consistency of the policy.
Yeah,
So, there's other problems.
But
that
your
arise.
position can truly be a pay for performance position.
Well, it technically is, and you guys decide how you want to measure that, but.
If we, to be consistent, I could see that we need to use these figures. I would also like to see a range in there. So I guess to be consistent, we should take the average range, which is 124 to 175. And if we put some of those phrases in there, like depending on qualifications and experience, or with period, with annual review, to let
I'm
them
sure.
know.
How long have they
That's
been
not
there?
how you figure the average. You would add all of them.
Well, and there is
Divided by
The
a,
average is here of
Yeah, they
these
give that.
ranges. This isn't the average of the salaries, because we
It's the
don't have
average
the
of the
current
ranges.
salaries. This is the average of the range.
Right.
So if we're gonna put a range in there as a figure, then I think we could use this average.
can I make a little bit of comment on that, though? Again, the average, so whatever, the average of this range is pretty much what you're paying me now, pretty close to that. So your range really should be from 124, 484 to 155,
Ah,
okay?
okay.
Yeah.
Because we've only moved all of our bargaining groups, including the sheriff and the county attorney, have pushed their argument as, I expect to at least be average. And we have gotten to average, but we haven't gotten above average
Right.
in all scenarios, including yours.
Right. And so that's why I suggest that would be the top of your range, or somewhere pretty close to that, because there would be an increase in 2022 probably. So instead of 155, it'd be a little higher.
3%
But
or whatever,
you
yeah.
wouldn't want to pay higher than that, because then you would be going way outside your philosophy for the whole pay group. So
So we would have a range of 124, 484 to 155,
maybe you would.
734.
Some kind of acknowledgement that there's a 2022 factor in there for, so it'd be a little more than 155, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I would like to put a range in there and use those averages, and I would like to use these counties because to be consistent. So with our other salary decisions.
And I think that gives the candidate, that gives them the ballpark so they know, well, this is worth going and applying for, because I might make the transition. And then, of course, you have the room to put them wherever it fits, and then they can aspire to.
So Pat, I feel like we hire you for your expertise. How do you feel about this discussion?
Yes, no, I thank you for the information that, Winona County, the average is kind of the max. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that, I think that's a very good number, because you don't know the candidates that you may have, obviously, one of the things that we want is we want somebody with lots of experience in county government and possibly cities. So I think it is important to have that range to give yourself some flexibility when it comes right down to it.
I think there needs to be a range, but I'm not sure that it needs to start at the bottom of the average. If they're trying to ultimately see the carrot is the top of, to be able to be paid average. That's, in my business endeavors in life, places where it hasn't been a good idea to find a bargain has been if I'm looking for a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or probably an administrator.
So my question would be, if you had some really stellar prodigy person, but they just got out of college and this was gonna be their first job, would you be willing to hire them? Because you might start
Yeah,
them.
well, we might not want to hire that candidate at all. But it feels also like there's some, if you're going to have really one of the top positions in the county, for them to be paid significantly lower than the majority of the department heads and county attorney, county sheriff, it feels like their pay range should be a range that's close to the window should be relatively close to the top of what we're going to pay. And we know the top of what we're going to pay is average. So I feel like tightening that window from 124 to 155 up to, I would say like 145 to 155.
Well, but
That's what my business sense would
the
tell
new
me.
person coming in may not have as many years' experience as the sheriff or the county attorney, so that is a reason why.
Or Ken did when he came to this position. This is maybe their second job or their third. So I understand your point. I don't think we should just say 145 though, because 10,000 isn't a big enough spread.
I think we need a bigger range.
Pat, do you know what's the average of a chief financial officer in Winona County?
I do not.
I was
Depends
looking,
on
I kind of
private
carry
sector
some of that
or
stuff
public
with me.
sector.
What?
It depends on the private sector or public
Yeah.
sector.
Well, I know, but I mean,
Government
it would give us,
The CFO over at the hospitals could be a lot different.
yeah, but it would give
Well,
us some,
Fast enough, but
Or fast.
But
give us some,
at the
1.5
university, a full professor with 25 years' experience is 125.
Mhm.
So that person could also be a candidate.
it's just
Depending
something to
if they have the
compare.
right
you know.
experience, depending if they have the right
I always
experience.
tell those people live in the metro area, you don't pay for parking in Winona County. You know, you don't
'Cause there
have a
isn't.
$25
Yeah, well,
You don't have a $25
I'm sorry, but
bill
it's
to pay
starting
to
to be
park.
true, man.
Well, I don't agree that 145 to 155 would be a good,
well,
a wide
130.
enough range.
130? I'd be okay with
Well,
130.
130 to
Just a note,
155.
when the ad was, or the recruitment was put out for me, 130 was what they threw out there. I ended up, I think agreeing to 120, but the bottom line was, that was what it was listed as, like up to 130 or something like that. So it was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I think a range of 130 to 155 would give us enough wiggle room and still attract the kind of candidate that we want to attract.
I think when a candidate is looking at a job, if they feel strongly and if they've got the experience, they most likely are not paying a lot of attention to that bottom number.
Okay.
They're focusing on the top.
Right, and they would advocate for themselves, to be somewhere in that range.
Yeah, and it'll be really up to them to prove to you why it is that they deserve that higher salary. And that would be experience, skills.
If we were in a different job market than what we are now, I mean, finding qualified people for any position is tough. And that's been the one place when we talk about any of our positions, I haven't thought that we should pay our qualified employees less. I mean, that I've been blessed as a business person in life, usually by lining up with top quality people, and I want to do everything I can to set the table to put a top quality person in this position. So I'd maybe agree if we said 135 to 155.
I would like to give us as much range, as much wiggle room as we can. So I would still stick, I think, with 130 to 155.
It
Or we
doesn't
could
take
split the
very,
difference and go 130, 250 or something.
so for me, I'm not looking really at the potential savings in the salary. I'm looking at the potential millions that this person will either ineffectively spend of the taxpayers' money or very efficiently spend of the taxpayers' money. So
I
whatever it
agree.
takes to get a qualified person, I'm more concerned about finding a qualified person than I am about saving $5,000 or $10,000 worth of salary. So
I agree, and that's sort of like future, that's like protective savings. It's savings that's in the future. But people don't work for salary alone. I mean, I think we're all an example of that. But this document is going to sell us also, and a decent range, and so.
We're talking salaries and everything, but to Commissioner Meyer's point, I'm sorry, didn't mean to catch up, Commissioner Bessie. But this relates into that. So we're saying a minimum qualifications is a bachelor in business and with 5 years of progressively more responsible experience. I don't know if that's enough. You talked about the young graduate, the whippersnapper that comes out and promises you the world, but is 5 years enough experience?
no,
I mean, I think with 5 years experience comes a higher salary, but I don't know if 5 is enough.
And one of the things I will say is, I mean, intentionally, we kind of leave on the front end, we leave that a little more open.
Yeah.
Because once they get into the process, you will have more opportunity to learn more about that and find out, were those 5 years really remarkable 5 years that we don't want to shut someone down from even applying for the job.
And if they've had 5 jobs in 5 years, we have to be very cautious.
Yes, yes. And those are things that.
But we
you know,
want
we're gonna
experience,
talk
so,
about, and then
yeah.
we're gonna
So I don't know if the
caution
5
you
years is
Right,
enough.
so you're saying those are things that come out in the interview process, because I think they do. Yeah.
Correct.
But if we allow people to come in with 5 years, then that's still okay. They're competing against whoever else applies.
True, yes.
know.
So, I mean, the burden really goes on to them that, hey, you have to prove that with 5 years, you're comparable with somebody who has
Mhm.
15, 20 years. For able to get, a person with that much.
Right, and so, I mean, this is your business, and you, obviously, we're hiring you for your professional advice, rather than us just articulating 4 or 5 years, or 10 years, or whatever we're gonna require. So this was written in the existing job description, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
so, which we used your firm last time to develop, so
And
I think we
the-
could stick with that rather than reinventing the wheel every.
Mhm.
The job description was just approved in August of 2021, so it's a recent, it's an up-to-date a job description.
And I think I specifically asked you when we met one-on-one if the salary range was attractive, and you, in your opinion, it was.
Correct. Yep, I still believe, and I think the research with the comparison, there may be debate about the comparison counties, I think that shows that you're right there in the middle.
Right.
Which is what I think needs to happen to attract somebody.
I kind of think we just,
I don't. I
picking
think-
on nickels here when
Yeah.
we should be focusing on the big picture.
Well, I don't have any grievance with the entire package. My specific thing
Other
was.
than the spelling.
Well, he's not the
No,
only one,
I agree with
clearly.
everything that you stated, but in my opinion, to get the best quality candidate, we should put our best numbers forward.
One,
This
yeah,
is-
one thing,
My
think we-
business
I
sense
think-
tells me that we
I
should.
think we can do that through the whole, looking at the applications and the interview process too.
Yep.
Well, and if we go out and we go through 3 rounds and we still haven't found anyone, then maybe we'll be rethinking things and, you know, maybe we'll get somebody in the first round and it'll be a qualified candidate and they'll only want 120,000. I mean, that's possible.
I have one last comment on the 155 as the upper range. That's our current average, so what would that be in 2022? Would we need to increase that 155 to show next year's?
Typically, yeah, I mean, you'd be going through in the next month, the process of setting those,
Yeah.
you know, for the next year, and they would be whatever the average reflects at that time, which typically goes up.
Yeah, so, I mean, we should increase the 155, which would, if we stay at 130 to I don't know what next year's increase would be. But
Couple
is there
percent. Yeah, I would just assume like, you know, 2 or 3%, yeah.
okay,
Is it, this position isn't open until somewhere it says January 6th.
so what's
The
2.5?
deadline's the 24th of November, I
So
think.
what's 2.5% of 155, whatever it is,
That's a few
734?
thousand. isn't it?
$159,627.35.
Oh, thank you.
160,
159,
160, there you go.
160.
Okay, so if we said 130 to 160 as a range, I think.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Move along.
Can I
Going back
possibly
to
get a,
semantics.
can I just get a vote on that? That would be,
No, I'm not gonna commit any dollars tonight.
No, okay.
typically what we do is we, on some of these, you know, this is going into the notice and everything. Typically what we do is we do get a.
Yeah, it says
Well, I
review,
think-
discuss, and approve the county administrator profile, so the salary range is part of that profile.
Yep.
I would move that the salary range be listed at 130,000 to 160,000.
I think that upper number is even more important than the range.
I
So-
think he's right.
I reapply for the 160?
Well, again,
Stop it.
see, we have a situation though, and I don't know if Ken did, but I passed where, depends, if they're a senior member, you know, they've been in the profession for a long time, they negotiate a little bit more time off, vacation, and things like that. So you can't promise the big dollars and then start giving more in those respects, because that's dollars too. You know, so there, you have to leave something that you have for, you know, you got the younger candidate that's looking at the dollars, but you've got maybe a more seasoned candidate that's looking at other types of terms of their employment,
Fishing
time off
license.
and stuff.
I support the motion.
I guess it gives us a range. I guess all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, gives you a range to work with.
Okay, so I hate to open up this can of worms. The salary range on the front page, that should be moved further back into the
Yeah, towards the end.
Oh,
brochures.
I didn't even notice that.
Consensus on.
I mean, if that's the way this is being presented, I mean.
How do you typically do it?
Yeah.
Typically, we do have it formatted like it is here.
That's kind of an
Having it
industry
out in
standard.
front, Having it out in front so that the applicant, you know,
Make
can
them
take
look
a
for
look
it,
and see, okay, well,
please.
and then they dig deeper.
Well, I could see putting the range on front. I don't see.
I mean, it just seems like transparency. This is the job, this is what it pays. If you're interested, here's a lot more information. I mean, that seems right.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want us to vote on that too?
If I can just get a
Fine,
consent.
I'm fine with
I
it.
think you have a
I'll vote
consent.
no.
I'm fine with the
Well,
range
I
on the
vote
front,
no.
not one number, but the range.
Yeah,
Range on front.
range is fine with me.
But then you have, well, then back on page 2 203, 204, something, you've got this position announced. So
That's where we're
where does
putting,
that fall into this whole packet? I
that's
guess?
where
That-
we're
that
putting
will
the
be
range.
changed- That will
Yeah.
be changed to, in agreement to the.
But where does that fit, you know, when you're handed when they go look for this thing,
Kevin,
No.
did you use
Is it-
3%?
2.5.
2.5?
where does this fall when you get the packet? Are you showing us all the pretty pictures? And then
That doesn't
this
mean
comes up?
everyone's getting a 2.5, just so you know. You didn't just negotiate.
You actually just approved my contract.
Earlier.
Commissioner Ward, this will be the last page. And sometimes what we'll have in the position announcement is it may be even separate. If somebody, for some reason, isn't willing to post our beautiful profile, we hope that they will at least post the announcement, which will give them enough information to find their way
Where
to the
to look.
profile.
Oh, you
which
mean then people use this?
Sometimes they just post this last page.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's what that page is used.
Yeah, so we're trying to get the whole packet out there, but at times, for whatever reason, if they're just getting a page,
Yeah.
at least there they can dig deeper and get more information. This gives them a quick summary to pique their interest, to draw them into looking at the beautiful pictures and seeing what a wonderful place Winona is.
So then I have, with your adjective of exciting projects that are underway, such as the construction of a new $28 million jail. Is that an exciting project? No, it's a mandated.
You know, some
Your
administrators.
choice of words.
And maybe Administrator Fritz can say, some administrators get excited about different projects.
Well, they'd be excited that they don't have to
Being able to.
do it. They just
Being able
inherit
to
it.
be involved
Done,
and
yeah.
engaged and working with.
Well, he could maybe change that to important, right? Significant.
Significant projects.
Significant.
Yeah.
Exciting sounds, I don't know. I don't get excited about spending taxpayer $28 million.
I think you have gotten excited, just not in a good way.
Yeah, in a bad way. That's right. You're absolutely correct. You read me well.
Butter up the dynamic board somehow too that they get
Yeah.
to work with.
Put a few adjectives in there.
You might,
That'll come in the face-to-face.
I don't know, he could use exciting for us, I suppose, because I think we
So
context.
what else do you need from us?
Just taking a look at some of the dates that we had identified. I know December 14th was a day that we were talking about selecting the finalist. That's a date that I will be coming back to meet with the board.
Does that seem realistic? It's the end of October. Does that seem realistic? I mean, we don't want to, the drawbacks, we don't want to draw it out too long, because if somebody's
Correct.
currently employed, they want it probably a short window. If they're, well, and if they're unemployed, we maybe don't necessarily want them. I mean, it has to be a short enough window so that they apply, they know if they're a finalist or not, and then you got that whole cumbersome, well, your name goes out and your current employer knows you're looking for a job. Does it all fit within those parameters?
The timeline that, the latest timeline that has been provided has us coming up with interviews on January 6th, and then coming up with a decision on that date. So based on that, we do have December 14th listed as a selection of finalists. We put this together because we know this, we will make this work. If you, as the county board, wish to modify that, that's certainly within your right. But we will work with this schedule, and we will make this schedule work as it is now, if that's what you wish us to do.
So I'm sorry.
Fine, but I would like whoever the potential candidate I'd like them to understand that the starting date, I feel, should be somewhat flexible. If we, if they need 60, 90 days to put in, I think Administrator Fritz is leaving our county in good enough condition. And we've got an assistant administrator that's, well aware of how to put agendas together. If that window needs, I don't want to compress that to make it difficult for a good candidate.
What I'm talking though is if we pick a finalist in December 14th, they're sitting out there for 3 weeks. not knowing, and then the word's out that they're a finalist over the holidays and everything, is that fair to a candidate? Or do we move it, well, either way, I mean, with a couple major holidays and everything in there, and they're kind of in trouble in a way? I mean, is that fair and realistic to that person, or would you
Holidays happen every year.
wait and announce finalists after the holidays and then do interviews on a shorter turnaround time? I'm just asking. Is that a long time to be a finalist and have the whole world know you're out job hunting?
You know, if you're a finalist, they're gonna find out one way or another, whether it's a week or whether it's, 2 or 3 weeks. I guess we took a look at it from the county's perspective, and we did factor in January 6th is when the decision is gonna be made. That person will probably be started in February because they will possibly have to give notice to an employer. So you can certainly push it back, but
Well, I'm
are you
just
okay with
asking, I
that from
think-
a county perspective? We kind of thought with Ken leaving, it would be nice to get somebody on board and have that transition as soon as possible, but it's up to you as the board.
What the others think? I mean,
I'm fine with the schedule.
what do you think, Ken? You've been in that position before. Of course, you were retired, you were available. You
Yeah.
were retired, but
I
if you've
would
been
rather-
currently employed,
Yeah, I would rather know I'm a finalist sooner when I put the application in instead of sitting on it, because if you're, and I wasn't really in that situation, but if you were looking for a new job, you might be looking other places too.
right,
And if you're not a finalist, you may take another job.
you run that risk
So
too.
if it lags, a month, or two. So I'd prefer to know, right? I mean, the deadline for submittals is the 14th of November or 24th.
24 is what it looks.
24th of November.
Correct.
Yeah, so, I don't want to wait till January to find out if I'm a finalist.
Well, that's what I was saying. I
Yeah.
thought maybe that date needed to be moved
Yeah.
back. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you draw it out too long and it becomes a problem. You're trying to hit that sweet spot.
Right.
And it's really hard. It's kind of an art,
Because once you take applications, and you said that closes on the 24th of November?
Yeah. So we
Okay,
will
and then
actually-
we'll narrow it down to finalists by
The 14th of December.
Correct.
14th of December. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's still kind of a big lag there.
Yeah.
You gotta sit through the holidays waiting to figure out what happened.
And Mr. Melvin, the January 6th, you'll need to change it to just 2022.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
That happens every year, doesn't it?
That's not the, that's probably the first board. Is that the first board meeting in January?
I believe that is actually our interview day, so that what we'll end up doing is we'll end up calling a special meeting, but that morning will be filled with interviews of candidates.
Do you know what day that is?
It's a Thursday.
The Thursday?
Oh, the
Okay,
6th.
so the
6th is a
first Monday after or first Tuesday after the first Monday is actually earlier that week. That would be a board meeting.
4th.
Yeah, because you have to have it. Remember, that's
Yeah,
weird in
it's a certain-
January. And then you'd have another board meeting just a week after that. So I don't know that you need a special meeting, do you? I mean, you'd have maybe a closed session or something, but it would be in conjunction with.
You're suggesting make it the 4th instead of the 6th?
Well, I'm just thinking for your convenience, rather than having to have a separate meeting.
Yeah.
You can tie a closed session to your board meeting on the 4th.
Yeah.
Or you could wait until the next Tuesday, which is
The 11th.
The 11th, yeah.
Yeah.
Either way.
So then we would have to move the interviews up from the 6th. Have the interviews.
So you're going to have the interviews and then report to the board that day?
Yes.
Okay.
That's typically what we do is we go through the interview process, and then at the end of that, while it's still fresh in your mind, we have a discussion about candidates, and then have a board meeting to go ahead and authorize a hiring committee or somebody to work with DDA and negotiate.
But are you going to be able to
So-
get department head, you're going to have 3 separate interviews?
Correct.
Okay,
And
and
that's-
ideally, how many candidates are we going to narrow this down to?
And that's where we don't know the exact numbers right now. Once we'll be posting this if approved, revised, everything taken care of. Tonight, we'll be posting this tomorrow, and then we'll find out how many applicants we have based on that. We're going to, look at the criteria, make sure that they meet minimums, and then we're gonna know the numbers, and then we'll start putting that together. And we'll also be looking to get input from you in terms of what you want that process to be. So I think, you talked about having a citizen group, department heads, and obviously the board is going to be doing an interview as well. So we'll be running several different individuals through that interview process. So they'll be rotating from room to room, somewhat similar, I think, to what you did previously.
How did we determine the makeup of the citizens group last time around?
We all picked one. I think we did.
No, I don't remember what we did though. I mean,
Is that customary to have a citizens group as part of this?
I think it was an odd request, but it worked out well.
I think what some groups, we deal with cities and with counties. I think sometimes they take various committee members, citizens at large, and they just kind of put a wide scope of different individuals on that group. So there's one group that is just made of, non-elected individuals, non-department heads.
Because essentially they're asking prepared questions and then they're applying a score or notes.
Correct, yes. So they'll be making a recommendation, or I shouldn't even say recommendation. What they'll be doing is they'll be providing you with input. So if there's something that they liked about John Doe, they'll say, his financial background was really, that's something that we value. We're not even going to ask them to rank them, but more so point out good qualities that hopefully is something that you recognize from individuals as well. And that'll be input that'll be shared with you, because you will have more information than the department head group, than the citizen group. You're going to have information into their personality. You're going to have information into their aptitude test. You're going to have more information to see a more complete picture.
If you do go with the 4th, you'd want to have that meeting at night, because then you'd have the day to do those interviews. But that's also the time when I think you appoint the chair and you look at advisory committees and all that stuff. So you might want to program it on the 11th, where you can make it a night board meeting and do all the interviews before.
I feel like the concept of doing it on like 2 days after, like on the 6th, I feel like we need to dedicate a day to that. I'm not concerned about having it in conjunction with the county board meeting.
Doesn't bother me.
Fair enough, yeah.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, so because you're suggesting just then after having a special meeting along with that.
Like on the 6th,
Yeah.
on a
Correct.
Thursday, the 6th.
Yeah, and it
Up to
could
you
be a
guys.
10-minute meeting. Oftentimes you'll find that, things kind of rise to the top. It could be a 10-minute meeting. It could be a half-an-hour meeting.
Prerogative.
The big thing is how many candidates we get, and if we get the qualifications we're looking for, that'll determine the schedule, how long it takes.
And once we get this posted, you'll receive from me a weekly email that will update you on different things, number of applications, if there are individuals that I was, able to reach out to.
Now, you mentioned something, we're not doing any of those high-profile aptitude screening tests, are we, or do you do those?
There is a test, a mental aptitude test that individuals will take. It's responding to some questions.
All candidates take that, or just?
The finalists.
And that's built into your fee?
Yes, that's all, that's part of the information.
Well,
that we
MCIT
provide you.
spent $20,000 at doing some tests.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
The-
you can spend a lot of money in those kinds of things.
There are some counties who will actually send candidates to a
Couple days.
psychologist to
Yeah.
have a discussion. which.
Yeah, there's all
Quite
levels of screenings.
Intense.
Yes. Yep.
But no, this is them sitting at home, responding to questions. Even the video interview is a thing where individuals can do it at home. They get a practice question and they don't know the question in advance, but they, in front of their computer, give their response, and that information then is shared with all of you. Take a look and see how they respond and how they, appear in front of the camera.
So Commissioner Olson, how do you feel about the 6th?
Pardon me?
How do you feel about the 6th? You're the one that has a job.
That'll work. We'll make it work. I'll be older then, by a year.
Snowstorm day.
I got a birthday on the 1st.
Yeah.
Your birthday's the 1st.
January 6th sounds like a cold day in
My husband's the
southeast
31st.
Minnesota.
Really? That's kind of a ripoff, I think.
It
All
is.
right, what else did you need from us tonight, Pat?
Okay,
Got it?
so the last thing that I wanted to do is I just wanted to kind of plant the seed to get you to start thinking about, like Commissioner Olson had said, what is the process for doing the interviews? Prior to COVID, there used to be, meet the public. In some cities, they were actually doing kind of a bus tour. Obviously, in a county, there's a lot of facilities and different things that may not be as convenient, but I just wanted to kind of, we don't need to determine here tonight, but just have you think about, how would that work out? Obviously, it sounds like there may be some interest in having a citizen group do part of the interview. I think that you've done the department heads and that they provided some really good input earlier, so I think they would be an asset to include again. And then any other thoughts or questions that you guys might have about the process, but we will get this posted. We will get this revised, corrected. We will get this posted tomorrow. We post to about 20 different sites. Obviously, different city leagues of neighboring states, universities, different things. So we will do everything that we can to promote and make people aware of this. I have received a few questions already about this, so that's good.
In other counties, you mentioned cities. I expressed my concern with people coming from city government.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, we don't want to
counties.
get burned on that again.
Yeah, we had to learn through that process.
That kind of has a good sense of humor. So kind of what I just heard you just ask us, I think, was, are we okay with a little bit more of like doing some of this virtually rather than the old traditional hands-on bus ride, meet the community? And my thoughts on that is, given the unpredictable nature of this pandemic, and if we want to continue to move forward, that we should probably embrace a little bit more of the virtual nature than to say everything's got to be hands-on, shaking hands, meeting each other, meeting the community. But I thought I heard that question. I don't know.
Then we have weather and.
Yeah.
Yeah, weather in January or December.
We found in the last 2 years that there's a lot more things that we can manage virtually than what we thought we could. Not that if I was given a choice, I would want the hands-on.
Well, and I
in
think
person.
you're right, Commissioner Jacob, with the virtual, and I think the candidate can weigh that too. In the past, we've had some local, we've had some from a far distance, and even in a normal time, maybe virtual is for initial round would be quite acceptable. Yes, no, from the rest of the board?
Well, I
Virtual?
think there was a question before of the travel pay, if you're gonna.
Yeah, you're gonna pay.
If you're gonna pay somebody to
Well,
come
yeah,
in.
we had
there.
a couple, we had a Florida and I think a Pennsylvania, and yeah, they did some virtual. Yeah, I remember seeing one of them virtually because we didn't want to pay airfare to bring them here.
Greyhound.
So, yeah, so we will certainly continue discussions about that. I've got what I need here tonight to to go back, make changes, and get this posted and,
Well, you don't have to post it at 8 o'clock. Like, take your time.
Okay.
Proofread it. Commissioner Kavesi's edits.
Right.
Yeah, and I gave you that paper. It's,
Don't stay up all night, we want you fresh eyes looking at the paper before you post it. Okay?
all right,
All right.
thank you very much, appreciate your time.
All right, good night.
be careful driving.
Yeah.
A lot of, wherever you're going, there's a lot of deer moving around.
Yeah, bring your knife.
Okay, moving on then, 9.2, discuss and or recommend appointment of Citizen Advisory Committee volunteer.
I know, so,
Commissioner Jacob.
I know we tabled this from last meeting, but I'm wondering, I feel like right now our citizen advisory committee positions are open and being applied for. So I'm wondering about, just to fill this at the last minute right before people have the opportunity to bring those applications into us. I feel like this applicant could certainly be a part of that process. And I'm wondering about just doing this on schedule with the rest of our appointments that we do annually. I feel like that would be a fair way to manage it.
Discussion? You're right. We have the process going. It's advertised, all our citizen committees, and it is listed. Even this particular board is listed on that list. So I would like to see a whole slate of candidates for all the positions, and just keep Ms. Soderstrom's application as current to go into the file.
Oh, yeah,
for
I mean,
this
yeah,
position.
absolutely. Goes without saying.
Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes,
That-
Commissioner Meyer.
For transparency's sake, I want to say that I had a conversation with Ms. Baranek today about this specific individual. And she said that she would not say anything to me on the phone that she wouldn't allow me to say in the open in this meeting. So she had a concern about the candidate and the idea that as far as an individual being a resident in low-income housing and then being a representative on the board, that is an actual position, and that position for Winona County is actually filled. And so in her mind, this individual would potentially be sort of filling that position, which is why she had concerns about it. And she herself indicated that she would probably prefer a different candidate. So I just want to be open that was my conversation with Buffy Baranek today.
Yes, and I, sitting on the board of SEMSHA, realize that the dollars and cents that are spent through that board take a real serious, dedicated look at the whole picture. And you're right, we do have a citizen, I think that the term is a user of the programs that SEMSHA offers. And you're right, that is, it's any of the participating counties can fill that spot. It just happens that the person currently there is from Winona. And so we do have representation and such. So I guess what I'm hearing is that we'll just hold this application over to include it with all our other citizen advisory.
Madam Chair, I would say though that I don't necessarily think that just because we do our positions in January or make those appointments then, that when we have openings during the year, we would set a precedent of not appointing and waiting until the year end.
Yeah, this one just happens to be so close.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Good.
so.
This
is
one's
that
right
consensus?
during the time when it's open, so, yeah.
Pardon-
This
pardon
is
me?
right during the time when it is open.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that would be fair to anybody else who might apply.
Okay, all right, so consensus?
Yep.
All right, moving on. 9.3, approve coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery framework. And Ken?
Okay, I provided a document presentation in the packet that goes through in detail kind of what's been going on with this particular program and where I'd recommend that we consider taking it at the next level, and then some talk about the future for it. One of the things I want to make clear up front, because I think there's some maybe not miscommunication, misunderstanding. I'm not asking the board to approve any specific project tonight. There's a framework listed in here that I would like the board to concur with, and we can talk about that. So I think the kind of, I know you can all read and absorb this information. I don't have to go through everything in it, but the county's, for the sake of the public and so forth, the county's going to receive $9.8 million from the American Rescue Plan, and there's a state and local government fiscal recovery portion that specifies that money. We've already received half of that money, and we'll receive the rest of it, the other half, in 2022. We worked with Winona to survey the county, throughout the county, various community needs, so we could get an idea for the board. This is just to inform the board of the kind of things that the community believe either number one, was impacted negatively due to the coronavirus, or are things that would be useful in dealing with the mitigation of the coronavirus. There are several themes in there, and you can read the details. And I think that's important because it helps us understand where you might allocate the money as you go forward. The other part we did was the number of agencies over the last probably 6 months or so have contacted me and said, well, how do we access this money? And to give the board a feel for the kind of projects that might be out there, I told them, send me an informal request, put in as much information as you have now. And I explained to each of them that we would do it at some point. The board would be looking at all the possibilities, but this will help the board understand, what kind of things are out there. So you've got a kind of a variety of different, I put a list in here that provides some examples of, well, it's basically the list. There are a few more that came in since then in terms of projects that are out there that may be submitted at some point.
Excuse me, Ken, is that the list that's on page 251?
Yeah,
It
it's
says
like
project
balance sheet or something like that.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so those are informal requests. Some of them have more detail than others. And so, of course, if at some point, the framework is designed to kind of lay out the categories, general categories to looking to kind of group the money in. The first one was the board already approved $2.6 million for broadband expansion. So that's already allocated. There's $3.1 million in what they call revenue recapture of lost revenue. That's something the county can utilize directly, but you do have to find a connection to COVID, either mitigation using personnel or a project or service or program. And so some of the departments have already come up with some ideas, and those are in that list as well, but they're listed under revenue recapture. Then there's a recommendation to use about $1.5 million in there as part of the framework. Again, these are just the broad categories for business and not-for-profit assistance. When we ran the last business and not-for-profit assistance grants through the chamber under the CARES Act, we had about $524,000 of applications that didn't get funded because they came in after the money had ran out. So in talking to the chamber, they felt that it would be something we'd want to consider funding, looking again at those. They'd have to reapply, but looking at those applications and seeing if they're still relevant, and then having that be kind of the first tranche of that money, and then the rest would be allocated again to a grant program for business assistance and not-for-profits. And the way that was done last time is there were $20,000 grants or up to $20,000 grants, and you had to provide some basic information to show that you had some kind of adverse effect due to COVID. So, it could have been lost revenue, it could have been added expenses, that kind of thing. Then the rest of the money, and I'm look at the number here. Let's see, 2.5 million I've listed as called special projects and programs. That's the area where the county needs to put together some process to kind of an open call for projects where, and we need some criteria, obviously, in an application and a process and all that. And so that's why I asked a number of community leaders that are listed as the team to help create that review process and to vet those projects and then make recommendations to the county board. So all of this in the end is the county board has to approve all these things. None of these things are are just approved at this point, except the 2.6 million that came in for that was used for broadband. So what would my envisioning what would happen is the team would put together the criteria, application form, all the other legal requirements, that kind of thing, and then vet those projects, provide them to the county board and say, okay, we think this one meets the criteria for the ARP funding. It meets one of these social needs that's been identified, whether it's new bathrooms or it could be a program, it could be personnel in a mental health capacity. As you see, the number of those informal proposals indicated, and then that would be brought to the county board, and then approval could be decided on each of those projects. So that it kind of, I know it's complicated and there's a lot of information here. Bottom line is just the next step is what I'm asking for is to approve the framework. Then we'll put together the various programs, and then anything that we need to get authorized by the county board, we can come back and do that to move the next step. One of the things that I think was important in this, because I'll be transitioning out, is to have a group that can kind of, along with administrative oversight from the county, can continue to move the process forward. So hopefully I can meet with that, if the board concurs, I can meet with that group in early December, kind of get the framework, work with either Maureen, or we also have some temporary help as well to kind of do the support work, and then kind of get that process set up for the next year. I'll be gone, but then the team can continue to work in the direction that the board set. I expect that on the special projects, a lot of people have asked, well, when might the board ask for, an open call for projects? And I indicated probably sometime in the first quarter, maybe February, latest March. And what would happen there is all these informal ones plus any other formal ones, you're going to need to require more of a plan, so that the team and then the board can ultimately look at it and say, okay, this is the budget, this is how much you're putting into the program, this is what the program will do for the county and the residents. What's the impact, all those kind of things. Basically looking at the value of the project as part of the program. So I think that covers it, other than specific questions in terms of again, asking for the framework to be approved.
Yeah, I had a question. We have a proposed 4-member team.
Yeah, well, 5 including the county administrator.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on page 251, where you have the possible applications that have already come in, or?
Well, those are informal. They were just, and again, I said, when people called and said, well, how can we, can we access this money? Is the county going to allocate it? And I would say, just send me what your idea is and I'll put it on the list. And then when it comes time for formal proposal, we'll ask you for more specific information and a formal.
One thing I noticed though, 4 of these inquiries were made by people who are now proposed to be on the team. So how would we handle that?
Yeah, well, again, the board, the board, I mean, if you want to have someone on the team, you don't want to have to exclude their agencies, right?
All right.
So that it'll have to be, the criteria is still going to be decided by the county board. So the committee can give it to the team can give it to the board and say, this is the criteria. And then it's just a matter of looking at the criteria. And ultimately, what gets recommended to the county board has to be kind of oversight by the county administrator. So, yeah, so I think there's the potential, I suppose, for the agencies to advocate for their projects, but I think they're all professionals, and that's why I picked people that could be objective to do that. I felt that we needed some people that were tied to the different parts of the community, so the not-for-profit sector, the city, rural cities like St. Charles, housing, that's why Buffy's on there. The problem is any team you put together that has any expertise and reach into that group would have the same conflict. So I kind of weighed that between having a group that wouldn't have any of those connections, could be unbiased, but wouldn't really have any knowledge of those different areas. So it's kind of kind of something you have to work with.
But the team right now is designing, or these are their duties, to design the process and whatever, and to review the applications and see which ones meet eligibility and which ones meet the needs that Engage Winona survey uncovered.
And also
then-
the intent
And
of
the required
the
Right,
act itself.
yeah,
And the codes that are listed in there for the US Treasury codes, those kind of tell you where they want you to spend the money or where areas are eligible and you can spend money.
yeah, and then they have to recommend projects to us.
Yeah.
And then we will, okay, so that's what the team is going to do.
Yeah, so the balance really, when it comes down to it, is the board can look at this list of recommended projects and say, you know what, we don't feel the balance is right for, and so we'd rather see more mental health money rather than sewer and water, you know, that kind of thing. And there's gonna have to be some working with the board to kind of make sure the criteria we're using to review is acceptable to everybody.
Right, and this money is not a moving target, but there is infrastructure money that is a moving target federally now.
Yeah, there's a lot of
And
other
if that
state,
comes through, then that might
totally different.
change the
pie, yeah,
balance of
yeah.
sewer and water, or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So that, I just wanted to confirm then. So the numbers that we see for the 4 categories, 232, while the capture is probably what it is, which is good, the others really are fluid. That is to say, we maybe want to give away $1.5 million, but maybe if there's not demand for that, then that money
Oh,
will
absolutely,
move to
yeah,
something
yeah.
else. So
Yeah, they're not in stone. They're just, you know, had to find
Starting
some way to kind of allocate a rough, so we knew what to develop. Yeah, yeah.
So you're talking about the codes, that you're talking about on page like 253, you got like 1 through.
Yeah.
Those are the,
Those are the US Treasury reporting codes.
that's the reporting
And by default, you know, it's, you know, if you're gonna have something that's eligible, it has to fall into one of those codes. Now, they're really broad. I mean, there's so many of them, and they cover a whole big range of things. But there are some that are a little more specific, like on the infrastructure, they mentioned broadband, water, sewer. There are other counties that have, you know, kind of looked at that differently, but I try to be conservative when we want to meet these things. In the CARES Act, we were pretty conservative about making sure we met the criteria. And when we got our audit, we were very fortunate to only have a few items that were not considered categorized correctly, and that didn't fall within the CARES Act. So you have to be careful, because at the end of the day, when the audit's done, if you don't hit these categories, or they think it's not quite fit, the Treasury could say, you know, that's disqualified, and then it comes out of the county's coffer. So you don't want to
The
do
one
that.
that really, and this whole concept too, the one that bothers me here is like 2.14, it says rehiring public sector staff. We start hiring staff with these dollars, and they're only here for a short, you know, they're not ongoing. Will there be some criteria? I hope there's some criteria in the analysis that this is something that can continue, like, you know, like a building is here for, you know, 20, 30 years. But a staff person, you have to figure out how to pay next year.
Yeah, there's, I've had some conversations with different agencies, and some of them want to propose staff, you know, like a community connector, that's through the community hub, or you know, that kind of thing. Typically you should look at it as kind of like seed money. So the idea is when they put in the program,
down that
well,
path
not coming from the
before.
county. I mean, they have and part of the program needs to be, okay, you're going to, let's say it's 2 years, right? So you have this position for 2 years, you're going to do it. And after that, you have to be sustainable, not the county, you know, no county funding at that point.
Emphasized.
Yeah,
Or
and
will
some of the
create a-
internal positions, like we've had some temporary, like in public health and in, you know, personnel and stuff to handle the process. Those are, when they're brought in either as temps, or they're brought in with you know, like tied to the grant. So after a certain period, they expire.
My goal is not to tie any future boards with
Right.
additional ongoing
Yeah.
expenses related to this.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any. The only exception to that would be in the 3.1 million of recapture, right? Specific projects that the county staff, let's say the county departments, bring forward. You know, if they, let's say it's a computer program, you know, if it's something new, it may end up there might be some after the 2024 that would be a maintenance, you know, that would go on. So that would be identified up front. But it wouldn't be any different than coming to the county board for any other process like that. So if the county board approves it, they have to keep in mind they're approving some kind of ongoing cost in some cases. Other ones would be tied specifically to the grant process. So, here's how much money we're allocating to that. When the program's done, the program's done. Maybe it's, let's say, septic improvements or something, would fall into something like that. Doesn't mean a future board couldn't decide to keep doing things, but it's not intended to do that because you don't want to create that problem down the road.
So, what, Mr. O'Laughlin?
If I may, obviously it's the board's decision to make what the process is going to look like, but I think you still have the issue of, it seems there's an appearance that it's less than ideal to have people designing the process who are applying for funds through the process. I don't think that's been addressed yet.
Yeah, that seems a little problematic.
I don't know how you're going to have it unless you do just I don't know what the option would be. Because if you have people who aren't tied to the community that can't apply, then you won't have anybody to review the project unless you use staff or something.
Where was the list again? What page was that?
Yeah, the list of the individuals?
Madam Chair, could I speak for a minute? It's Kay Qualley, Planning and Environmental Services Director.
Yes, Kay.
As the Assistant County Attorney has pointed out, there's not necessarily equal representation on that committee. Under infrastructure, I have items under parks, park improvements, which figured prominently in the survey and so on, but I don't have any representation on that committee. So, no, that was my only comment. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
The county staff is represented under the $3.1 million of revenue recapture. That's where programs that are initiated by county staff, it could be department head, it could be, a group that we have. That's where that allocation will be, not the $2.5 million for special projects.
Is there a separate procedure for how that will be determined, or?
Yeah, that's just the same as the process we normally would do at the board. We would accept let's say Kay has a project for enhancing a park. She would put it to us, we would bring it to the county board, and they would make a decision on whether we could spend the money on that.
One thing I like on page 217, the eligibility is spelled out very clearly for the projects, and this is the focus.
Yeah.
And it says the source is the U.S. Treasury. Does that meet those Treasury codes that you were speaking of?
Yeah, there's no prohibition between.
That's clearer to me than the language about the codes.
Yeah.
So the team you're referring to is Buffy Baronic, Christy Ransom, Nick Coverman, and Jenica Sobek.
Yeah, that's on page 235.
I do have some issues there that they're all great people. I know them all and everything, but there is nobody representing business.
Well, the chamber's on it.
Well, but Christy is not a business person. She is the administrator of the businesses. I'm saying a banker or, a CEO of some company or something.
Well, remember,
they all know how to spend money, but my issue is they don't know how to make money.
Well, remember the purpose of that group is just to review and vet the application.
I think a business person would have a different perspective. I can see these people all being of similar.
Well, the money
mindset.
The money for the most part, although you could spend it all, I suppose, on business assistance, is broken down into a number of categories that have to do with, not-for-profits, for housing, for those kind of things. It's not all, there are business grants, but those are right now allocated at 1.5 million, but you could have a business apply. I'm not sure what the value of having just a plain business person would add really to that process, because it's not like we're looking at loans for economic development or things where you need to assess the financial condition of the of the agency, that kind of thing.
I just think you need a business person in here. I think this is all too, it's taxpayer dollars, but it's all too government spending. I mean, it is government spending, but I think a business person would bring a different perspective to the mix. Commissioner Meyer.
Attorney O'Laughlin, Do you have a recommendation?
I mean, even if you went with outside county people reviewing or vetting the projects, making the recommendations to you, it just seems inherently risky to have a person make a recommendation to you when they're applying for it. I mean, you would never allow that in under any other circumstance.
Kind of a conflict of interest.
Well, then I suggest if there's a perception of that, then we would drop the team and just allow administration to handle that. Because it's really a process where you're just developing criteria for the and going through that process. The hard part was developing the criteria because these particular team members have experience in doing that already. There's significant experience in handling that kind of money in the past. But if that's a problem, and I can understand the perception, then I'd rather just do it as we did the CARES Act and let administration handle it.
Now, administration, maybe not being an expert in housing, can take input from people who have that expertise.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's what we did last time, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to represent the county.
I
You
take
know.
your point, yep.
But again, I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with it. And if it's not comfortable, then I'd suggest just having the county do it.
They're all good people, don't get me
Oh,
wrong.
I
They're
know,
all
I
good,
know.
And they all come with qualifications. But I think it would be problematic for any one of them to tell somebody no to a project.
Sure, I get
mean,
it. I get it.
I just see that happening.
Yeah.
They could see value and
Yeah.
I mean, the board too could see value in almost everything, but when you start reading the criteria, is it good for the whole community? And,
Right,
you know, the
right.
things that have been put in the.
And I didn't want to say, well, if you're on the committee, then you're excluded from applying because
No,
that
because
wouldn't
then-
be right
yeah.
either. It wouldn't meet our objectives. So, yeah, no, I'm good with that. It'll just mean a little more, it should be fine. I mean, it doesn't mean we can't seek input on the
Maybe
process.
we need to extend your employment for another month. No.
I don't think so.
You're gonna get her done? We'll hold you to it.
Tropical
Florida in
vacation is coming.
Yeah,
Someplace warm. in
What else
January.
do we?
I think that'll be fine. I mean, I don't, I think that the administration can take those in just as easily, manage them and get them to the board in the recommendations. So, and I think that we know kind of the balance we're looking for based on the act, the actual U.S. Treasury eligibility and that kind of thing. So we should be able to work it out.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I do want to say thank you for the thought and effort, and I know all of the conversations that you've had with people over the course of the summer that has gone into this document. And also for hiring Engage Winona and sort of giving them direction, and I'm just delighted to see the stuff that came back and what that kind of helps us to inform our decision-making. So overall, I mean, aside from this, I'm really, really pleased with the framework.
Okay.
It's not easy to spend $9.8 million effectively,
Well,
responsibly.
without trouble.
Accountable and being accountable. It's not easy. It's a monumental task for every organization that's getting these dollars to hopefully do it the best and the right way. Yeah, anybody else?
So we're canceling the team and we're putting those duties back into administration.
Administration, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll work it out. So yeah, so basically you'd just be approving the framework with the exception of not utilizing the team as recommended. And that's fine. I was trying to think if there's anything else we needed to cover to get direction. Yeah, so that should be good. Some of those numbers you were talking about, the 1.5 for businesses, the 2.5 for special projects, depending on how, I suppose, I guess there's a couple ways we could approach it. We'll have to talk about it internally, but whether you go for an open project call and then see what kind of request you have, and then figure out how much you want to provide for business grants, and then how much for projects, because you could have more for projects than the 2.5 million. So there's.
You're getting half, you're getting half and half of
Yeah.
money. So are you gonna approve everything right from the start, or are you gonna have two different application
Well,
processes?
what we did under the CARES Act was we had a different application process.
Mhm.
So we had the one where it was business grants, straightforward.
Right.
If you meet this criteria, you get the check, right?
Yep.
And that was allowed and everything. the 2.5 million that's allocated here is for projects that are going to take more to understand their budgets, more to understand the details.
No, I understand that, but I mean, okay, so we're getting the money in two different chunks and two different
Timing
timelines.
is, yeah.
Yeah, so are you just gonna make a whole list and say, well, we'll fund your project in 2 years? Or are we gonna say, we're gonna work on this chunk of money right now, and then we'll wait and work on the next chunk of money when that comes in?
Some of the projects will go over 2 years.
Uh-huh.
So you may get the first year funding and then the second year funding, let's say. So I've looked at kind of the timing of the ones that they're requesting, and we can space it out so that it works that way. But you may have to say, yeah, we can't fund yours until 2023, or maybe the end of the year in 2022 or something. Yeah.
So I guess again, that people trying to apply to receive these funds, they need to put their project forward now. Or
Well, yeah,
as
and
soon
it will
as-
ask when do you need the money,
Don't
for
wait
how
2
long?
years.
Can you
just think
phase
there's
it?
Another phase.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, they all have to come in soon.
That's why we need to have a lot more information than we have for
Okay.
those projects. Yeah. It's gonna be not a complicated, but it's gonna take us after time consuming.
I'll do
Yeah,
it
and I
right.
just want to say the amount that comes back to the county because of lost income, I do think that's a fair way to handle that. We lost income because of the pandemic. If we didn't recapture that money, we would have to cut staff drastically, and we would have to cut services. So I mean, I'm trying to address some emails that I've received, and I think we probably all have received, that were questioning the ability that we would give ourselves back some of this money. And I'm just saying, if we didn't give ourselves back some of that money, we would be in a very difficult place to provide services.
Yeah, we put in the 2022 budget, I think it was around 500 and some thousand of recapture, or maybe it was 420 some thousand of recapture of the net public health cost and the net emergency management costs, because those are directly eligible. And so that helped offset the deficit. So that's money that would be received out of the 3.1 million that goes back into the reserve, which then, pays for that and then reduces the deficit. The rest of it is for projects that the county, if the county wants to, it needs to expand, like the vaccination program or something, and there isn't a grant that's handling it, or you want to, provide sewer and water relief, or you want to provide something else. So it's not really that money has to be tied to something expended. So it's projects that we couldn't do if it wasn't for the fact that money was available. It's not just going right back into the bottom line of the county.
Yeah, no, it's not going into the
With the
general
exception of
budget.
that about 500,000.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, well, and I also am delighted that many of the things under revenue capture, I'm thinking the topmost thing was recreational opportunities. And so Stone Point Park and work on Farmers Park both fit absolutely with that. So
Yeah, when you tie them to one-time capital costs, to replace playground equipment or to pave a lot or something like that, you don't have the necessarily huge ongoing costs with that. And that meets the criteria, or that meets the need that the community expressed.
yeah, and for sure, the public health stuff, family dependency court, those things are all right in line with the community services that have been requested.
And with the Engage Winona responses. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I expect some of those will just get better, or not better proposals, more detailed proposals, and then hopefully can fund some of them.
Yeah. So are we willing to accept the framework? I guess, is that the right term?
Do you want a motion?
Recovery
Yeah,
framework?
because the auditors will come back and say, did the board approve it?
Okay.
And then there'll be further approvals for the actual projects, but.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So moved.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so I would want to move the framework be amended with the change to the committee structure.
Right.
Adjust the committee, to remove the committee and make it through
Greg's
administration.
motion was not seconded, so I think if someone wants to make that motion, we don't need to amend his motion because it didn't get a second.
Do you want to make a different motion?
I'll make the motion to take into consideration discussion of removing the committee setup
I'll second it.
And approve.
and approve the framework as presented.
Yes.
All right. So a motion made by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to approve the recovery framework minus the committee that was recommended. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, nay? Okay.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
I didn't bring my Robert's Rules of Order. Do you need to do a motion on 9.2 that you're continuing to table it or continue the,
We did consensus.
oh, like I said, I didn't bring my Robert's Rules and that's, I didn't know.
Should we make a motion?
We can.
All right, so I would move
9.2.
that we table 9.2 to the annual process for taking Citizen Advisory Committee applications.
I second that.
Second. So we have a motion referring to 9.2 to table the application to move it to our full search for candidates for all our citizen advisory, which is ongoing. All right. Made by Commissioner Kavesi, second by Commissioner Meyer. Was that, did I get it opposite?
Yeah.
Okay. Although, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, approved. All right. Committee reports and communications, just real quick. It's Halloween. Parents, please be careful with your children. It gets so dark so early now that just be awfully careful. It's fun to go get candy, but it's not fun to get hurt. And then another thing that I just got an email about, we are having a Red Kettle campaign with the Salvation Army coming up. It'll be in November to December. And for people that know, the Red Kettle, money raised through the Red Kettle stays in Winona County. It is very specific to Winona County. And Tom Kubels and a group of people are working on that board now to make good use of those dollars. So that'll be coming up. You can sign up in the future. We'll have more about that. Red Kettle, it's just around the corner.
Yeah, so don't
Right.
do it in La Crosse or Rochester. do
No,
it
you have to
here.
punch in Winona. Yes, yeah. You've got to ring in Winona County. All right. Any other further business to come before the Winona County Board? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kavesi, second by Commissioner Jacob to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.